Hey y'all, my name is Ware. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a July wrap-up where I talk about all the books that I read last month. And I actually read 14 books in July, so that's why I kind of decided to stray from my recent reads format that I've been doing. Not very frequently, but like more recently. I haven't done a wrap-up in forever because I just haven't read a lot of books per month, but I'm happy to say that I read 14 books last month, which is crazy because I think I'm at 31 or 32 for the whole year as of right now. So half my reading for the year occurred in July. So I'm feeling very relieved, very proud of myself. I finally feel like I've kicked this reading slump in the behind. So let's talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, new favorites, horrible books that I read, and just all the drama of the books that I read in the month of July. The first book that I read in the month of July was a book that I actually picked up, I think in January. I read a chapter of, and then I said, not right now. And so I technically started this 6 months ago. However, I just wasn't in the mood for it. It wasn't the vibe. And you know what? It wasn't the vibe when I read it either because it wasn't that good or that memorable. And that is A History of Wild Places. Now, I say it wasn't that good. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I did enjoy it. However, I wanted to enjoy it so much more, and honestly, because of how much I liked the beginning of the book, I was really disappointed by the ending. So let's get into what this book is about. This book follows a detective named Travis who wants to go and find out what happened to this woman who disappeared. She was an author and she wrote about this place where children would go and like disappear. So you're kind of thinking, okay, is this magical realism? Did this woman disappear into the world of her own fiction? And that's what I really wanted this book to be. And I'm not saying it is or it wasn't because honestly I don't really remember. This book kind of took a direction that I didn't necessarily enjoy. I didn't really like being in the main character's head. I didn't like Travis. I didn't really care about the characters that are later introduced in the novel. It was just like, it had such a cool idea, right? I was like, okay, we're gonna get lost into this story within a story. That's my jam. I'm really excited about this. And then it just ended up not being what I wanted it to be. And that's not really the book's fault, but also like, it had so much potential that it just didn't follow through on. And it was not my vibe, but maybe it'll be your vibe. It was alright. The next book that I read in July was also kind of disappointing. It wasn't bad, but I would say this one wasn't as disappointing because I didn't really have any expectations of it. I bought this book forever ago because it sounded interesting, but I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't look at reviews. I didn't have anyone tell me to read this book. I was just like, you know what, this summary? Yeah, I'd read a book about it, and that is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, and this is my first Alice Feeney book that I ever read, and perhaps it will be my last. Like I said, the book was not that bad. I gave this one 3 stars as well, but it wasn't the fact that it wasn't bad that, you know, makes me not want to read from Alice Feeney again. It's just the fact that it wasn't good. The plot actually was really interesting, and I thought that the twists that came were not like out of left field, but like also they were out of left field. I was like, where did this twist come from? Like I was genuinely shocked, but because it was so out of left field, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And I didn't really care for Alice Feeney's writing style. I didn't even tell you what this book is about, so let me backtrack a little bit. If you didn't guess, this is a thriller type novel because there are plot twists upon plot twists that you're trying to figure out. But this one follows a husband and a wife who are having marital issues, so they decide to go away for a weekend to kind of rekindle their marriage, and they stay at this cottage, and weird things just keep happening in this cottage, and you're also realizing that the husband and the wife have secrets from one another, and you're thinking, okay, is one of them gonna kill the other one? Like, what's going on here? You don't really know. And there's also a really bad snowstorm, so they're kind of trapped in this cottage. They can't even go home. And I didn't care for this one as much as I wanted to because, once again, the writing style was really weird. The plot twist was there, but like, you know, a good plot twist is when you didn't see it coming, but once it happens, you're like, oh my god, that made sense. You didn't see this one coming, and then you're like, oh my god, that makes sense, but does it? Like, I was very confused on the actual like probability of this happening, and I don't think it was set up properly. It was like half set up. correctly. And then the other half I was kind of like, I still have a lot of questions about this actually, can we like return to this? So 3 stars. I didn't want to think too hard about it. I don't want to reread this to kind of understand if the plot twist makes sense, but I read this in one day and I do owe it a little bit for helping me kick the reading slump that I was in for 6 months. So 3 solid stars. The next book that I read, I don't own. I read it on my phone, and that is The Roughest Draft. This is a romance novel, and it follows 2 co-authors who wrote a book together that became a bestseller, and everyone's like, oh my god, I want them to write another book. Like, their book, absolutely magical, wonderful. And you know, they would write another book together if the main character, Christina, was like into the idea, but she ended up having feelings for her co-author, Nathan, and so she cut ties with him. She doesn't want anything to do with him, and now, that was like 2 years ago or something like that, it was in the past, and now in the present day, she is engaged to either her editor or her agent, someone who does important things for her books, and he's like, please write another book with Nathan. Y'all's book did so well together and y'all should do another one together. You don't write anymore and it makes me like really sad, and I love you because you're a writer. And Christina is just like, you know what, I'll write another book with Nathan because I love my fiance and I want this to work well with us, which didn't really sit right with me. I was like, Christina, don't do that for him. Don't do anything you don't want to for a man. That is just not what we need to be doing here. And you know, she has some character development throughout the book, but it's about Christina and Nathan rekindling and writing that second book together, but it's also about them finding each other once again, or I guess for the first time, because things didn't work out for the first one. It was alright. Like, it was good. Like, the plot was there, the romance was there, everything was there, and you think like, because it has all these components that seemingly work really well together, this book would be amazing, incredible, the best thing since sliced bread. However, it was not. It did not do that for me. I can recognize that this book did everything right. However, it didn't work for me, and I couldn't tell you why that is. I just think that I didn't care about Christina, I didn't care about Nathan, I didn't really want them to work on things together, and like, because I didn't care about the very root of the book, which like is romance, I should be rooting for these 2 characters to be together, and like, they do make sense on paper. They wrote a book together that's very romantic, like they obviously have feelings for each other, but I could never really get behind the relationship because it started when she was in a relationship with another person, and like there's things that are explained to like justify and make it okay, and like it's not really cheating, but my heart was never in their relationship because I didn't really get why they worked together beyond the fact that they wrote a book together. I didn't see their chemistry beyond like the pages of their own work. I think that there needed to be more between them, and I liked the concept, I liked the setting. They were like stuck in a house together and working on this book and trying to get it done, but it just was missing that spark and that like umph for me. So this one was unfortunately also 3 stars, which like is not a bad rating. I still enjoyed the book, I still had a good time. 3 stars is a positive thing for me, but it's like a book that I'm not really going to go out of my way to recommend to people, and I'll probably never think about it beyond this video. The next book that I'm going to talk about, we're actually going down a star rating. We have gotten to the first 2-star of the month, and I actually don't know if there's another 2-star of the month. I had a lot of 3 stars this month, but I did have a juicy 1-star that I'll tell you about later. But this one, oh my god, I wanted it to just simply end. This one I had high hopes for. I was like, oh my god, I loved my first Ruth Ware. I'm probably going to really enjoy this one because everything's going well so far. This book follows a girl named Hal who receives a mysterious letter in the mail, and she's like, hey, your grandmother just died and there's this inheritance waiting for you. You need to come and present identification after the funeral at the reading of the will. And Hal's like, that's really weird because my grandmother died a long time ago. There's no way I could be related to this person, but she's in a really hard financial bind, and her mother actually died and she didn't really know a lot about her family, so she's like, you know what, I'm just gonna go. I'll be this mysterious granddaughter, the long lost granddaughter, and we'll see what happens. Like, I might as well try and get some money out of this. And I was like, you know what, like, it's a little deceitful, but I was kind of hoping, you know, she could be related to these people. We don't really know the situation, and the mystery was there from the beginning. I was like, oh my god, how is she related to Mrs. Westaway? How is she gonna fit into this family? But then this book dragged and dragged and dragged, and I felt like I was just drowning in the mud, and I was just so unbelievably mad because I liked how Hal was like inserting herself into this narrative, and I liked that she read tarot for a living. Like, I thought that was really cool and how that was gonna play into the novel, but this book just kept repeating itself. It kept running around in circles over and over again, like I am right now probably. I was so mad because I didn't even care about the twist when we actually got there, and that's what I was so excited for in the beginning, was just like find out her identity. And then it was time for me to find out her identity. I was like, oh my god, please just let this be over. So 2 stars for this one. The next book that I read in July was Shipped, and this is pitched as The Hating Game meets The Honeymooners, and I enjoyed this one. I also gave it 3 stars, which is shocking. I feel like this was the month of 3 stars. On Honeymooners, Hating Game comp, which you're probably like, Meredith, you didn't really care about either of those books, so why are you reading Shipped? And I would tell you, that's a great question. It's because it was available at my library and I literally had nothing else that I wanted to read. So I decided to pick it up, and it's basically, like I just said, those 2 books, but it takes place on a cruise ship because the 2 main characters, Henley and Graham, are competing for the same promotion at their job. However, they've never met because Graham works virtually, so they've only ever really interacted with each other on video calls and conferences and things like that. There was this incident where Henley, you know, had this big idea and then Graham took credit for it, and so she hates him. She absolutely loathes this man, and she's like, you're not getting my job, you can't just take credit for all my work. She's never told him this, of course. Like, she's never told him any of these reasons why she has a problem with him, but when they get on the cruise ship, she, you know, is kind of mean to him, and he's like, dude, why are you being so rude to me right now? It turns out, you know, Graham probably isn't as bad as Henley thought that he was this whole time, and so a little bit of romantic feelings develop, and it's complicated because they're fighting for the same job. My issue with this one was actually Henley. I really liked Graham as a character, but I didn't like how Henley refused to give Graham a chance. He was trying so hard, he was being so nice to her, and Henley just shut him down immediately, like everything. And I just thought that how she reacted to things was honestly immature, and it didn't make me want to root for her for this job, let alone this romance. So I was just not really into the idea of reading a book about her because she was honestly just really, really annoying. I also didn't like how a lot of the book was cringe. Like, there was a lot of like cringe elements, but there were also a lot of moments that were super fun and that I was like laughing at. Pros and cons, like the pros definitely outweighed the cons, but also I don't like that I didn't enjoy the main character of the book. Like, she wasn't insufferable, but I wasn't rooting for her. So that's why this one was kind of like middle of the road, 3 stars. If you liked the 2 books that I talked about, The Honeymooners or The Hating Game, definitely pick this one up. You're gonna eat this up. You're gonna love it. It's gonna be just your thing, but I felt very similarly to those other 2 books as I did about Shipped, so I don't know why I thought this one would have gone better, but like, I wanted to try it, so I did. Next, I'm going to talk about 3 books collectively. They're actually these feminist novellas that I'm sure you've heard all about by Ali Hazelwood, the author of The Love Hypothesis, and I did read this book. I believe I've talked about it on my channel in like a reading vlog, wrap up, something like that. And I love The Love Hypothesis. I am very basic, I will not lie. I greatly enjoyed that book and Ali Hazelwood's writing, so I was like, oh my gosh, 3 novellas, let's kick it, let's read them, let's knock them out real quick because they're pretty short. I think they were like 3.5 to 4 hours each on audiobook, so if you crank that sucker speed up, you can crank those out. So I was reading one a day when I was reading these, and they're called Under One Roof, Stuck With You, and Below Zero. The one I remember the least is Stuck With You, that's the second one. But it wasn't my least favorite out of the 3. My least favorite was Below Zero. So I actually like enjoyed them less as I read more, which I feel like is a consensus among those who have read the feminist novellas. They all kind of felt like the same book to me, but I had a really good time reading them. They're about women in STEM finding love. They're all 3 really good friends, and it's like each of them has their own novella focused on their own love story, and it's like nerdy and sciencey, and it's cute. It's very formulaic, I will say. Like, it does feel like you're reading the same novella 3 times, so maybe space them out. Don't read them back to back like I did, because I can't really tell you the characters' names or like anything that happened. I remember the third novella is about Hannah because I liked Hannah the least. That's why that was like my least favorite book. I thought she was so annoying. I thought they were all very similar, but I had a really good time reading each of them individually, so I'm not gonna knock the formula if the formula works. I think that if you liked The Love Hypothesis, try it. You'll probably like it. And you know what? If you don't, it's a very short novella and you're probably not going to waste that much time reading it. Another book that was a whopping good time, actually it wasn't a good time, I'm probably like traumatized over this book because I cried so much reading it, and that is Part of Your World. This was a 5-star read, guys, the first of the month, the first in a very long time. This was hands down my favorite book of the month. I'm obsessed with this book and I want to read everything that this author has wrote because wow, this book gave me butterflies. It took my breath away. Like, I'm not even being like, I'm being a little dramatic, but like I'm not being dramatic when I say this gave me butterflies because I was just so invested in the story and the romance. This one follows Alexis and Daniel, who are from two very different worlds. Alexis is from a family of doctors with a prestigious reputation to uphold, and Daniel is this mayor of a small town, and they meet sort of like by accident. It wasn't like they met like on a dating app or anything. Alexis needs her car towed on the side of the road and Daniel comes to her aid, and things kind of take off from there. And Alexis at first is like, you know what, I don't want a relationship with you, but they quickly realize how deep their feelings run for each other, and so it makes things really complicated when they're from two separate worlds but they want to be with each other so badly. I loved this book so much, and I loved that it dealt with more than just the current romance. Like, Alexis has a lot of trauma from her past relationship that's brought up. It was like a lot of like mental abuse, and I think that you should definitely take caution reading this book if that's something that could trigger you, but I thought it was done so beautifully. Like, I thought that the topics were handled very well, and I just felt so hard for Alexis and for Daniel, and I understood why they couldn't be together even though they really wanted to be together. Like, I thought the conflict was actually really not great. Like, conflict's never great, but you know, like in romance books, miscommunication is often used as a trope. But in this book, I really felt why they couldn't be together. I felt the miscommunication and like why it was happening. I really love this book. As soon as I finished it, I was like, oh my god, do I read it again? Like, I don't know how to move on. This was absolutely perfect, and I highly recommend this book to anyone who's looking for a good feel-good, not even a feel-good romance, but like a romance with layers to it, and a romance with lots of emotion but also just like really sweet moments. This was absolutely perfect. A book that was not absolutely perfect, Upgrade by Blake Crouch, and I almost just like whacked myself in the face with this book because I was so angrily picking it up. This was one of my most anticipated books of this year. One of my most anticipated books in a long time because I love Blake Crouch. When I saw this was the book of the month pick, I immediately snatched it, immediately ordered it. I knew I had to have it in my hands because I have been waiting for this book ever since I heard about it. Before it had a cover, before it had anything, I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited for Upgrade by Blake Crouch. I gave it 2 stars. I'm really disappointed in this one. I really liked the beginning because that was what I was promised. The story promised me a detective story about Logan who gets upgraded with his genetics. Like, he's on a mission and it goes poorly, and essentially he's given this genetic upgrade by a mysterious person. They don't know who did this to him, but all of a sudden everything about him is better. His senses are better, his mind is better, his body is better. He is an upgraded human being essentially. And in this world, genetics are a very taboo thing. There's a lot of underground genetic labs and things like that the detectives actually go in and prevent because it's harmed their population so much in this kind of futuristic world. And I was really excited about this idea. I thought the beginning was so fast-paced, and I thought that the concept was so interesting. Like, what would happen if you were given this upgrade and could, you know, suddenly be a better human being? When I was in the second half of this book, I wanted it to be over so bad, so bad. Like, I was sick and tired. I didn't understand why anything was happening. 2 stars. Then I had a phase, a moment of weakness in the month, and it started out so great because I decided I was going to be a Christina Lauren gal. I decided I was going to read another Christina Lauren book and I was going to give it a shot. I read The Honeymooners by them a year and a half, 2 years ago, I don't know, read it a long time ago, and I really didn't care about it. Like, I thought it was fine. mediocre book. I was like, ah, it's cute, whatever, don't really care about it, not gonna think about this book again. And now I'm thinking about it again because I'm thinking about how much I wanted to like Christina Lauren books. And the first of the month, this is where things are going wrong, okay? Because I read multiple Christina Lauren books this month. First book that I read this month was an absolute beautiful masterpiece, okay? This is where I thought I could be a Christina Lauren gal. That was The Soulmate Equation. This is actually my second 5-star book of the month and the only other 5-star book that I gave this month because we're going downhill from here, baby. I could not believe how much I liked this book because I was like, oh my god, I've heard, like, if you like one Christina Lauren book, you're gonna like all of them. And I did not care about the first one that I read, so surely I misjudged Christina Lauren. Like, this is gonna be my thing. I'm really gonna be into their books. And I was so into The Soulmate Equation. I'm not even gonna lie, guys, I cried listening to this book. This one proposes an interesting question, and I thought it was really interesting because it also follows like genetics and stuff. So I read 2 books about genetics back to back, but one was a sci-fi and one was a romance. So like, interesting little tidbit for you about my reading month. But The Soulmate Equation proposes the question, what would you do if there was a dating app and you could actually submit your own genetic sample to find people who are also genetically similar to you and would be like a good romantic match? So basically you can find your soulmate through your DNA. And so that's what Jess does in this book. She does it because her friends like, just do it, like whatever. And it ends up that her soulmate with a 98% is actually the creator of the app, who she does not like. It was just really, really good. I loved the fact that there was such a strong friendship dynamic because the main character, Jess, and her best friend have a really big relationship in this book. And I also really liked the fact that there was a child included. Jess is a child, and that's like a really big, important factor in this book. So I just really loved it. I thought the romance was sweet, and I thought how River, the main love interest, interacted with Jess's daughter was really sweet. So yeah, I cried, okay? And that's why I was convinced I could be a Christina Lauren gal. And then I read Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating, which was also remarkably fine. I gave this one like 3.5 stars. I thought it was good, you know, until the end. Like, I was really into it. This one follows Josh and Hazel, who are 2 people who went to college together, and Hazel had a crush on Josh. Josh didn't know. They go their separate ways, end up together again 10 years later. They end up reconnecting and become instant best friends. But these best friends decide they don't want to date each other, because who would think to do that? They instead decide that they are going to go on double dates with other people, even though they are clearly each other's person from the beginning. So that was frustrating to me, was reading about how they both liked each other so much, but then them not actually getting together. That was just so frustrating. I was like, can y'all just like grow up and just tell each other how you feel about each other, and like not do this whole friends to lovers thing, but like in a bad way, because you didn't even see how they became friends, because they became instantaneous best friends. And then like the lovers progression was like really fast. Like, it just, there was no build up to this. It was just very instant click of a button, and these characters were together and suddenly they made perfect sense for each other, which was a shame because I did actually really enjoy how Josh and Hazel interacted with each other. I really liked Hazel's character. She's this quirky, you know, female protagonist who feels too much, which I really liked, but I just wanted more explanation as to why these 2 should have been friends in the first place. Like, I get why they dated because they were obviously good friends, but I wanted to see how they became friends, which was frustrating. And also the ending was just kind of like weird. Didn't really care for the ending, but I liked the book enough until the ending. Like, when we got 2/3 in, I was like, okay, I'm done here. So like I said, we went downhill from here. My first Christina Lauren book of the month was a whopping success. My second one, not so much. It was fine. But then I read my favorite half night stand, and this is where I draw the line. The line is in the sand. I have drawn it. I will not be picking up any more Christina Lauren, but that's probably a lie because the audiobooks are like 7 hours, so like it's really easy just to turn those babies out. This one was horrible because this one follows Millie and Reed, and they're besties, okay? So we have the bestie dynamic again, and you don't really know why they're besties. Like, they tell you, but like you don't really get it, because what do they have in common? Obviously nothing. They start going on a dating app and like trying to find someone to take to this event thing with all their friends. Millie decides that when she matches with Reed, to change her profile to a different name and essentially catfish him, which is so romantic. I didn't like this. I didn't like that she lied to him. I thought it was icky, and I also didn't like that her and his friends, their mutual friends, like this is a whole group, knew about it, and she didn't think to tell him. Like, she lied to his face multiple times about it and like her identity on this dating app, and I just don't think catfishing is sexy. I don't think it's sexy. I don't think it's romantic. I thought it was icky, so this one was a 1 star. I hated it so much. It was terrible. The last book that I read this month was The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager, and this one was fine. This one was 3.5 stars, which it was like better than like most books that I read this month, but like it wasn't what I wanted it to be, which I feel like is what I've said about a lot of these books, but you know what, we could just do better. This one follows a woman, Casey, who watches the house across the lake, if you couldn't tell by the title of this book, and she thinks something is going on because there's this couple that she watches across the lake, and she wants to know what happened to the wife because she suddenly disappears one day. So that's basically what this is Casey's doing her own detective work to kind of figure out what happened to the wife. She thinks the husband did it, but she just can't prove it. Taylor Swift. That's what this is, and then it got weird like halfway through. My biggest thing with this is that it was kind of slow, and it ultimately just took a weird turn that I didn't feel like was built up to. But beyond that, like, I enjoyed it. I thought the book was fine. I thought the writing was fine. I just think it was a little bit too long and out of left field. I think I would have liked it more if there were just more breadcrumbs sprinkled in to support the plot twist that we got. And the ending was just a little bit too rushed. I feel like the beginning of the book was so slow, and then the ending was so fast, and it just gave me whiplash. So I just needed a little bit more in the middle, you know? That is it. My camera battery is dying, so I'm going to go. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Tell me what you read in July, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Bye, y'all. I don't remember how to do this anymore.